Hey LFCC, it's Fresh Word, and tonight we're in the lab, and as you can see, the Teacher Squad is back. Now for this season of Teacher Squad, we have some new members, and we're gonna go ahead and introduce everybody. My name is Minister Carrie Joseph.
I am Minister Lenika Barrington.
I'm Minister Keisha True.
I'm Mother Angela Pride.
Hello, everyone. Elder Tiffany Timmons.
I'm Minister Jonathan Lingo.
I love that. And we're the Teacher Squad. And this session of Teacher Squad, we're gonna jump right back into Let There Be Art by Rachel Marie Kang. But tonight, focus will be Let There Be Remembrance. So before we go tap into Let There Be Remembrance, I'm just gonna we're gonna give people opportunity to speak on last season, some of the things that they remember from the chapter and from the books.
All right. So if you all remember, there was so many different chapters that we touched on and talked about. One of the ones that I definitely remember, just kind of throw some out there, we had Let There Be Bareness, we had Let There Be Goodness, we had Let There Be Movement, and all of these good things. But one of the ones that really, really stuck with me was Let There Be Goodness. That is one of the ones that I think I'm trying to constantly remind myself of that. I want to actually read real quick, it will be short. From page 35, it says, here we go. Page 35, it says, goodness is in all the moments you never thought to note as noteworthy. It's in the memories that save themselves into our soul. That for me is something that I'm constantly, because even I was sharing with you all the other day, even all the way down to the wrinkle in the bed. I'm telling the Lord, thank you for that. That is a reminder for me that, I have someone my husband is still here, he's still present. Even all the way down, I'm trying to change my perspective, even all the way down to, I go into the boys' room in the bathroom and that floor is wet. I have these wet footprints on the floor. I reminded myself, even when I say, oh my goodness, I have to say, oh my goodness, Lord, thank you. I need y'all to go clean this up now. But I'm just being reminded of all those moments of goodness. And that's one of the ones that definitely I continue to remember.
If I could touch on a chapter, it'll be laughter, but I would just like to focus on the author's perspective. Her perspective on life is that we're living stories, that everybody is writing a story in the now moment right now, and you are the author of that story. You have authority to make that story be whatever it is that you want it to be. So when she said that, it kind of opened my eyes, because I read in the Bible about David and their life and how it lives, in that moment, how I speak, God used it to speak to me. But in this moment right now, God is using us to speak to others. And, we walk with our life. We write a story with our life. But like I said, laughter was my favorite one, because in a world where everybody seems like they could be so serious all the time in professional settings, or everything has to be just right. But laughter, it lets you kind of let your hair down. It lets you realize that everything doesn't have to be so serious. It kind of allows you to breathe. And like she was saying, laughter is like medicine, It's medicine to yourself. So that's why I chose laughter.
All right, we back, baby. I'm so excited. So listen, the chapter that I love the most, and y'all know from last season, I love quotes.
Yes.
I love this book, and I read the whole thing.
You see the highlights.
Okay, highlights. All right, but my favorite chapter was Let There Be Bareness. And the thing that kind of stuck out to me is when I read, God calls to you, but he also comes. And it just kind of really reminds us and encourages us to be in your here-ness. Like, there's a stage in life where we go to God and we're worshiping and we're honest, but then we go through a season where we ain't so sure, God, like, you far, you tripping, you late, what's going on? And in those moments when we don't go to him, he's Father enough to come to us. So that's kind of what my favorite chapter has been, and it still kind of speaks to me almost every day. And it encourages me to be honest. Like, if I'm really feeling something, don't say, oh, I'm good, when I'm really not. You know, like, be honest in the moment. It's okay because God respects that here-ness. He gives us space and grace to kind of dwell and be in that presence. So that was my favorite chapter. But now, y'all, let me tell y'all.
Do you mind really quick before we
Yeah, go ahead.
Can we have those who are new, could they tell us something that you all aspire to learn, aspire to gain from? Because we're going to be at this for the next, 2 months or so, right?
Yeah.
Can you all just share maybe something like something that you plan or desire to take away from this time? Anybody want to share?
I'll go first. So far, what I've read in the book, which has been amazing thus far, I'm looking to be more vulnerable. Just reading this chapter alone, I haven't really dived in the whole, in the entire book just yet, but just looking to be more vulnerable. In my vulnerability, I can be honest with myself and where I am and the things that God has put in me that I'm not quite walking in just yet, maybe because of fear and anxiety. And I'm looking to overcome those things that are holding me back from actually walking into let there be art in my life.
I like what she said, and to piggyback off of that, I think for me, it would actually be not just learning more, but being able to learn from you all, because we all think differently, we perceive differently, and so the things, our takeaway is different. So being from a different generation, it will help me in my learning, but not only in my learning, but me being able to teach others from a different perspective. Yeah.
All right, me being a baby of the bunch, because I'm super young. But just to piggyback up what both of y'all said, like, I really just got into the book. And as I was reading, I texted him, I said, oh my God, I feel like crying. But it's like, I seeing myself in the book and like really just relating to the things that she was saying. And so I just want to, for me, I really want to learn more about myself. You know, of course, we could read these books to like teach others. You know, we read the Bible sometimes to teach others, but sometimes you got to find yourself in the book. Just to really grow. You know, I'm only 23 years old, so I'm just trying to grow and become a better person every day. So anytime I can find that in a book, I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. So that's definitely what I'm looking at out of this book.
Growth.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's exciting. We have grown with the Teacher Squad. We're growing everywhere. This is our favorite place to grow, as we always say. So we're going to jump into tonight's lesson, and it is about let there be remembrance. Now, this chapter right here, y'all, we finna really dig, right? So let there be remembrance. We talked about, there was a quote, of course. Hi, my name is Keisha. I love quotes. Okay, there is a quote that says, and then you leave what you leave with someone is an inheritance, but what you leave in them is a legacy. And when you're talking about let there be remembrance, it's not just about the things that happen, but it's also about the things that you leave. And a legacy is not just something you leave, but I'm going to challenge you all to think that it's also something you live, right? You know, your grandma always say, you better live them stories because you need some stories to tell, you know, to your children and to each other. So when you talk about let there be remembrance, like what did you guys take away from this chapter?
Well, so, and I'm going to kind of come from it. I want to spotlight just a small portion of the book. Because I know tonight we're going to talk a lot about legacy. We're going to talk about living in our legacy, living in the legacy of those who have gone before us. But I want to talk about something of the attributes that remembrance give to us, like what it leaves for us. And when I read two different sections of this particular chapter, two words kind of rung out to me, and I'm going to share those really quickly. So on page 174, it says, and this is the author kind of retelling her experience of her grandfather passing away. And she went on to say, I will tell you how I missed him and how his death left a hole right in the middle of my heart. But I am becoming okay. I'm coming to peace because I'm coming to remembrance. So that's one part. And then there was another part that she said, the tears came because there was sorrow, But the tears also came because there was hope. As I sat there cradling life in one hand and death in the other, I listened to the story of my grandfather's last moments, how he pointed to the ceiling of that hospital room and motioned to his 3 children that he was ready to be home, really home. While I watched, I did not feel a sting or a burning rage or anger or rage in needing to know why or how. I did not see a body swallowed up by the depth of dirt. Instead, I saw hope rise as I reflected. So when it says, I saw hope rise as I reflected, and then her saying that I was coming to peace because I was coming to remembrance, I wanted to just spotlight just a small portion of that, of the attributes of love and hope that remembrance connects us back to. And when I think about the word, and when we, look at the word remember means to put back, to remember something, to put it back together again. And, again, outside of just the legacy piece, I think it's important to be reminded, and this is where I know God is, just like really for the last few weeks, he's been reminding me to put things back together again. When we think about remembrance, it's like the recollection of things, the recollection of things, recollecting things, and recollecting what God has already said. And as I'm doing that, constantly reminding myself of what God has already said and reminding myself of God's word, putting him back together again in my mind and in my reality. I'm constantly in a place of being at a place of peace, in a place of hope. It's that assurance. So I just wanted to leave that with you all. We're going to be talking about legacy a lot tonight, but I really want to talk and just kind of put the small spotlight on what remembrance, and it's really I think it should be a daily practice that all of us should put into play, that we are constantly trying to be in a place of remembering and having a practice of remembrance, so that we can always find ourselves back to a place of peace, back to a place of hope. And that's what faith is. That's what our salvation walk is, being able to remember what God has already done.
Yeah.
Being able to remember how God has already brought us out. And something here now lately, I've just been reminded that I'm present in my reality, but I'm living in my faith. Like, I see what is going on around me. I see what my reality looks like, but I'm making sure I'm being reminded of the faith that God is already instilling what he's calling me to do. So again, I wanted to just remind us to put that piece as we're thinking about remembrance, not only for those who have gone on before us, but also putting that connection of remembrance, putting back together, brings us to peace and to hope. Yes, sir.
When you were saying that portion about she saw hope rising, it wasn't like actual seeing hope, tangible, but within yourself. When you remember of the goodness of Jesus, you should feel some hope rising on the inside of you. Hope and remembrance can be fuel to those areas to remind yourself of the promises of God. So always, that's why they always used to look back. They used to carry in the altar, used to carry things that God already done. So that when they time for them to go face another army, they pull out what God already done, so they can remember, and it fuels their courage, so they could go out and with boldness. You know what I'm saying? So that was powerful to me.
And also with the what happened in Love and Faith yesterday, second Sunday is our communion Sunday. And when I tell y'all I was watching, y'all was bananas in here. Okay? I loved every moment of y'all were bananas. But we observed communion, and it says, do this in remembrance of me. As you can, Pastor always charges us, don't just wait till second Sunday. Take it in your homes with your kids so that you're remembering all that God is still doing in your life.
The done things that he's still doing.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's my turn. I did have a scripture reference before I got into the key takeaways that I got from reading.
Read on.
So it's Psalm 77, 11 through 12, and it says, I will remember the deeds of the Lord. Remember your miracles of long ago. I will consider all your works and meditate on all your mighty deeds. And that scripture for me, it just keeps saying, it said remember about 2 times. I will remember your deeds. I will remember your miracles. And not only that, but I will meditate on it day and night.
Yeah.
Get what the Lord has done, what he is doing, and what he's going to do.
Right.
And so in order for me to think on those things, I have to remember.
That's right.
Okay? All right, so I'm excited because I was reading this, and the author was talking about woman that was a very intricate part of her life, and her name was Hilda's. Hilda's journeyed with her through some very trying times when she was young, when she was a mother. She spoke into her life. She prophesied to her and spoke to her about becoming a wife, and not just being a wife, but that God would send her someone that would love her genuinely. And this woman just kind of journeyed with her through all of the different levels of her life. And she passed due to COVID. And she really didn't know exactly how to articulate and create a memory for her friends, so she wrote a poem. So I'm going to read the poem to you, and this poem is encouraged and inspired by the legacy that her friend lived, by the way she whispered sweet, encouraging things to her, the way that she empowered her, the way that she taught her, the way that she spoke into her life. And so she was able to create a poem for her based off of the legacy that she lived, because she really couldn't articulate what she really wanted to say about this woman. So this is the poem that she wrote to her friend. So many of us ride on the prayers of those that came before us. We ride on their faithfulness. We ride on their foundations they forged. And by ride, I mean soar. By ride, I mean fly. We grow deep and wide into the people we've always been destined to become, mostly because of the souls that made sacrifices to shape and shift the world to turn its kind and gracious face towards us. Someday, someone will say the same of us, that we did not labor in vain, that it all meant something. And so we're in this life journeying to leave a legacy. That everything that we do, we have to be intentional, because someone is watching, someone is gleaning, someone is taking from us.
Yes.
And the things that Hilda's put inside of the author, she was able to speak these things, and she left a legacy for her. She was able to speak good things about her because of the impartation that her friend left behind. She spoke into her marriage. She spoke into her children. That doesn't come often. So those are your people. Those people that speak into you, they're leaving a legacy for you. And her life was not in vain. Those things that she did and those things that she spoke, they weren't just for sweet pleasures, or they just weren't to just say something to say something, but she didn't know her friend was going to pass due to COVID. And little did she know that that was a legacy that she was leaving by just being there. She was just present for her friend. When she was just a young teenager in college, she imparted and she spoke. And so many of us, we have people that are around us that are dropping little nuggets in our life and speaking things and imparting and empowering and encouraging us. And that's a legacy. Whether if they're gone on or if they're still here, they're still building legacy. So their life is not in vain. So that's what I kind of took from that.
I love that.
Amen.
I love that because the legacy that she was imparting into her is not imparted in this book, and it's now being imparted into us, and it's being
It's the
spread
retelling of
way
it too.
further.
Yes.
A little mustard seed, you drop that thing, see what happens. See what happens.
Yeah.
See what happens. It's gonna flourish. It kind of segues and leads me into my portion. My portion that kind of stuck out to me in the Remembrance was on the bottom of page 182. The author, Rachel Marie Kang, states that life on earth is brief, but legacies live on. And that point stood out to me because everything you do and everything you've gone through is part of your legacy. how you make people feel, the words you speak or spoke, even the vibe that you carry, it's all part of your legacy, and it's all part of how you'll be remembered.
Yeah.
So your demeanor people remember that. I always remember Pastor Kenneth Brown said this. He said, people may not always remember what you say, but they'll always remember how you make them feel.
Absolutely.
That goes a long way, and that is part of your legacy. When you leave this earth, it's not about, some people might even feel proud about that. Yeah, I don't let nobody come around me. I'm, this, that, and the third, and they label themselves and they carry that like a brand, like a star or something. But we're not living for ourselves.
That's right.
Does that character displays what Christ wants, and does he approve of that?
Right.
Because we all have a truth, but our truth is not necessarily God's truth. It's not the truth. And the truth is what we need. You have to pursue love. You gotta do what's right, what's righteous, and not always what seems right to you, but what's righteous to God. And that's one of the things that helped me along this chapter. I would like to propose this. I said this. We don't think about how we will be remembered enough. In this quick, responsive world we live in, considering the depth of our actions is an afterthought at best and a real challenge for most. One of the scriptures, I can say that especially when you're driving and stuff like that, everything is about us.
Yeah.
I know for me, I don't know if it's different where you're from, but in Miami, we driving like, man, they see me coming trying to go this way, cut in front of me. Everything is about us.
Sometimes they be wrong, though.
And you're wrong. And sometimes it do be them.
Sometimes they be wrong, yeah. You'll be out, just like, you got to drive
You
for
saw me
yourself and for
coming.
another person.
That's the
As soon as I hit my
That's the
brake, you hit
Jacksonville
your place. But a scripture that helped me get through that is James 1:19-21, and I'm going to pass it on. Understand this, my dear brothers and sisters. You must all be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to get angry. Human anger does not produce the righteousness God desires. So get rid of all that filth and evil in your lives and humbly accept the word God has planted in your hearts, for it has the power to save your souls.
Yes.
That's powerful. That's powerful to be. You
Quick,
got to
slow,
remember
slow.
that word
Quick, slow,
that's
slow.
planted in your heart. Say it again.
Quick, slow, slow.
Quick, slow, slow. That's right.
Slow.
Remember that when you're driving, Jonathan.
Oh God. All right. So when I was reading this book, like I said, it really, really got to me. And so if we look at the bottom of page 175, it says, I didn't know it then, but he wasn't a mere man who talked too much. He was a man who told tales, a man who told stories as a way of stretching himself out to selflessly see and serve the people around him. That really blessed me. So the reason why I said bless me, because when I look at my life, I look at my grandfather. And she's talking about her grandfather and how he's really served. I've seen my grandfather serve people who didn't like him, people who just would talk about him, scandalize his name. But no matter what, his heart stayed pure. Yeah. And he continued to serve. And so the point I really want to bring out was letting your servanthood be your story. Like, people should know you by the fruits that you bear and how you serve others. I have a vision board at my house. I look at it every day. And I have a quote that says, feeling a need to serve. And it's a reminder to me that this life that I'm living is not mine.
That's right.
Like, everything that I go through is to help somebody else.
That's right.
I could tell my testimony. The Bible says we overcome by the words of our testimony. So everything we do, everything we say, how we act, how we show love to others is all a part of serving. It is not just serving God. God, Jesus was a selfless man himself. Right. He literally gave his life for people who he knew would reject him. And so we have to live that same life if we say we're going to be followers of Christ. Also, it's a burden. Sometimes it's a burden that we have to sacrifice ourselves to help others. It's not a bad burden, because the Bible does say in Proverbs 19:17, whoever is kind to the poor lends to the Lord, and he will reward them for what they have done. So at the end of the day, it's not our life. Yeah. It's not ours. We have to do everything to serve others. even our testimony, it's a way of giving somebody encouragement. They might be going through. You just never know who or what they're going through. But at the end of the day, you may be able to just give them an encouraging word and tell them, God did this for me. I remember he did this for me. He can do this for you. It's all to help somebody else. And so when people remember how you treat them and how you serve them, people remember you. That's your legacy at the end of the day. Yeah. That's your legacy.
It is.
Yeah. So I know that we were talking about legacy, and we're talking about servanthood. And I know you guys saw the pictures in the beginning. Those were pictures of Pastor Simmons and how he started, how it started with AOC, and it kind of unfolded into Love and Faith, right? So Pastor Simmons has a legacy that he's imparting into all of us, not just, he's not gone, he's alive, and he's still working on his legacy now, like the legacy of love, the legacy of care, the legacy of presence, the legacy of giving. We give stuff on the altar. If you guys can see, we have stuff on the altar right now of making sure that we give to others. It's not just about us. It's not just about coming and shouting. He goes to the hospital. He's married us. He's been there to christen our babies. Like the presence speaks legacy. He is, as he transitions in a few months to bishop, the legacy that he's already working on, it's changed so many people's lives, y'all. Like, we come near and far to just sit and hear his words, to sit at his feet. And we have a life full of the things that he's even said to us. And he knows each and every one of us. He has his own relationship with Carrie, his own relationship with Jonathan. They was in here clowning earlier. But it's just kind of like the legacy that even Love and Faith will have in this community. We have to think about it and be intentional now what we're doing. So with that transition, I'm going to touch a really touchy subject, right? When we talk about remembrance, we only think about that when we're dead and gone. We only think about that when it comes to those moments we read the obituary at a funeral. Why?
Yeah.
Why?
Reflecting. Yeah.
Like, what will people say about you? And Pastor always says something. As believers, we don't just see how it's going to end. We say how it's going to end. Right. So why not say it and intentionally create it now while we're alive? Work on your obituary now. Like, work on that dash now. It's not about, she was born in 1983 and she died such and such. Like, what about that dash in the middle? What about you being a living epistle can you do right now? And that's just something, leaving a legacy, again, like I said in the beginning, is living a legacy. You gotta think about and be intentional about what you're doing. So, what is your obituary gonna say? What do you want it to say? We had to actually do this assignment when I was in school, and it was in a grief and loss class, and the teacher had us write our own obituary, y'all, and I lost it. Trying to think about, like, what do you mean write my own obituary? Yeah. But in the obituary, and I didn't bring it, but it really talked about my legacy of love and how love leads and how that kind of birthed the mantra that I live by, regardless of and in spite of. Yes. Love is. Like, love covers, love allows, and it's a legacy that continues that my pastor put in me. When I was 15 years old, it's something that just continues. So what about the legacy that you're leaving? Carrie, your legacy is laughter. Your legacy is love. Like, we know Carrie walking into the room, what's up, y'all? Hey, energy. Like, it's just, it fills the room. Lanika, she just be like, now, woman of God, what you're going to do is, and she just go ahead and pray. You know what I'm saying? She just, she just goes there. My mom, like, it's a legacy of presence. Like, everybody, once she give you that hug, that's it. You might as well go ahead and just, you might
can I get a hug now for the pride?
Lay out.
Right. And Elder Tiffany, she's really calculated. She's a teacher. She's going to talk to you really soft. She's going to respect you, and you're going to understand that I really care about you. Lingo, he just has a full presence. What's up, Doc? Hey. Like, it's just one of those things, but he's serious. So the legacy that we're filling our lives with here at Love and Faith, it is a great place to grow. We're growing legacies. We're growing memories. We're bringing us back to remembrance. And that is what I wanted to say, y'all. I'm excited about this. Y'all still happy? Good.
That was good.
Whew. So I'm going to tell y'all a little bit about the pictures, the
Yes,
props
let's
that you
talk about the
see.
pictures.
What we have up here are legacies that we respect, that we want to honor. And a lot of us have our grandparents, our mothers, our grandfathers, our fathers. And we just kind of want to share a little bit about one of our pictures, whoever wants to tap in.
Could I propose a question before we do that?
Yeah.
All right, quick question. And I want you to be honest with yourself out there. Are you okay with how you will be remembered? If you were to die today, would you be satisfied with the memory of yourself you leave behind? And I want you to really think about that. And if you wouldn't be satisfied with it, you can do something about it today. Do you want to be remembered as someone who believed in themselves or against themselves?
Wow.
Go ahead and answer that question, somebody, if you dare, in the comments.
You could do something about that today.
You do about it today.
We living it right now.
That dash, for real.
That was deep, ain't it? Shot, say loud.
The crazy thing, when I was in high school, we did every year in band, we had a whole conversation with our band director about the dash. And I'm just like, whoa, that really makes so much sense. As I got older, it really makes so much sense.
Really
Like, you have to live it every day being intentional.
Intentional. Yeah.
Like, every day.
Mother, go ahead.
Okay, well, I will talk a little bit about my picture. This is my grandmother. And, okay. This was my big girl. We called her Big Mama, but I used to call her my big girl. And she was my heart, y'all. When I remember her with such a fondness for the level of love that she had for everybody. She did not meet a stranger. She was not a wealthy woman, not by a long stretch. But every time somebody came to that house, she had something to offer somebody. She was always feeding people. She was at house in the neighborhood. She lived in the projects, you know. She was that house in the project where Good News used to come and drop off food, so everybody would come to her house. She was also, like Pastor's grandmother, the frozen cup lady and the
Flips.
candy lady.
She was that lady.
She was that lady. And when you came to her house, you could leave with food. You could leave with a kind word. You could leave with her having prayed for you, because she was a prayer warrior par none. So just to be able to grow with her and experience her and observe her presence and how she actually was with other people, that left a legacy for her granddaughters. I am her oldest granddaughter, and all of the granddaughters after, they followed in her footsteps. And all of them, in some shape, form, or fashion, are given back to the community because they, I like to say, inherited some of her traits. And so that love that she had for humanity has gone a long way, and it continues to go. That's the legacy that she left with us. Yeah. So when I remember, that remembrance, it's strong.
So some other ways that we can leave a legacy, they talk about it in the book on page 177, is leaving a legacy of remembrance through letters. And that's something that my mom does every morning. She writes in this journal. She go from the bed to fix her cup of coffee. She got out her Bible, 3 Bibles, and her journal. But I know when she's writing, she's leaving legacies of the things God is saying to her, so that once she's gone, I couldn't even get that out. Y'all see how I stuttered? Once she has transitioned, she's able to leave the legacy of being diligent with God and what the type of things that he can say. So think about that as we continue to talk about this lesson. What would you do to leave your legacy? Like, would you write letters? I know some people back in the day, we put things in a time capsule and we bury it. Like, what would you do? What could you do to leave your legacy?
I'm going to say something, and I have not been diligent with it, but when you were talking about the letters, I was reminded just now, something I need to get back to. It was Priscilla, will you all help me? Yes, Priscilla Shire. She was the one, she mentioned something once before, that she has journals for her boys. And anytime when there's these, and she said it's these small moments, anything that God has done for them, these small moments, she's kept journals for each of them. And now that they're older, she's given that to them. And when I saw that, I was like, I'm going to do the same. I love that. And I started to do it and kind of have fallen off. But that's something that we could do as well for our children, where we're writing. And it doesn't have to, because I think sometimes, too, and I hear us saying being intentional, but I think it's so important to just simply be, in the moments where we feel like it may not be as significant, like writing those things down, retelling. It's a joy and a beauty in being able to retell. But that was something I thought about, something I think that we could do, not just for the mothers, but even for those if you're not a mother, but something that you can write down for, just different things, journaling, period. And that was something she said, if you're brave enough, if you're bold enough. And I heard a quote said that history favors the bold. History favors those who are bold. So it's important that we have that boldness to be able to write things down and retell, because with all of these things, and even when you mentioned about her experience with her really good friend, we would not have known that had she not retold that. So I think even in Remembrance, we have a charge within ourselves to be able to retell, because sometimes we just simply hold on to. And even when you were talking about the whole soaring, being able to, when we're retelling, it's almost like us dropping those things off to those below and being able to give back. So I think it's important that we also are, retelling and having that courage to share what has been given to us.
And even taking pictures,
I was just gonna say that.
even like we love social media so much, and we know that pictures are worth 1,000 words. Like we always talk about, like once you put it up there, it's gone. You can't get it back. So be careful what you post. But just being able to make those memories, and Lanika has started to do that for us in our services. Well, she takes bunches of pictures and videos so that we can remember even this transition in this place, so that we would transition. So when we leaving a legacy, we haven't talked about the generation behind us. When you're leaving a legacy, you're leaving things for the generation. So think about the kids even of this church. Like, what are we leaving to them? What work are we doing? We include them in our services, and they lead us in the worship that we can't even pull out. They're so blessed and they're so anointed. But what are we going to leave them? What work are we doing to put it in their hands that is prepared for them to do greater than what we did? So that's also something to think about. When you're talking about love and faith, what is the legacy that, Eli and Lyric and Tegan, and like, what are they going to rise up and do? Like, we have ministers that have gone out. We have Pastor Godfrey. We have Bishop J.D. We have Elder Pastor Kenny. Like, they've gone on from that start to continue the journey, to continue that mile. So all of us ministers are here now. Like, what are we gonna do, y'all? What's next? What's next? What's now? What are we birthing out in this growth place? Like, what are we gonna have to show for it? What is in our capsule?
Can I piggyback off of what you were saying? You said about leaving letters for your children. I immediately went to being intentional. Sometimes being parents, we get comfortable and we think that it doesn't matter. Like, oh, they're good. They know I love them. They know they're going to do a good job. She knows she's going to get the job. I don't have to tell her that. But when we are intentional, we're talking about leaving notes and letters. Even in the book, it talks about leaving scrapbooks and photographs. And that just really jarred something for me as a mom. Sometimes I do get very comfortable in thinking that they know and they're good. But I also know that they have inherited some traits from me and I'm being a little vulnerable because that's what we talked about. What do you want to learn from this book? Being a little vulnerable. Low self-esteem sometimes,
Yeah.
right? So for my daughter, I want to start tonight writing down prophetic letters to her, speaking into her spirit, and start leaving letters of comfort and joy and empowerment. Because children, they actually learn by what they see.
Absolutely.
Right.
They catch it because of the life that we live. And I want my daughter to turn the pages and say, my mother lived this life, and I want her to find a secret book of letters that I have written to her, encouraging her, empowering her, and my sons. You know, and so we have to be intentional and remember the legacy that's on the inside of us, and that our life is what? Not in vain. And my life is worth telling my children and giving them something that they can look back and say, this was my mama. You know, this was my daddy. So I want to be intentional about that. Yeah.
And I like how you said intentional. So like when I was younger, honestly, probably up until recently, I hate going on vacation and seeing people just take pictures.
Yeah.
That just bothered me so bad. Everywhere we stop, I gotta take a picture at the gas station, please.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I just went on my first like trip to Chicago. I went to Chicago, and I was just intentional about just taking pictures. I was like, I gotta have memories, because I noticed I went to so many places and I have no pictures.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I want to be able to show my kids and my kids' kids that I went to Chicago by myself, had to enjoy myself. Like, and it's okay to be by yourself.
Yeah.
Just in,
That's a whole
like
other-
that's a whole other conversation. But
Yeah.
it really was eye-opening for myself. Like, I had to kind of just check myself. Like, I ain't gotta be telling people you don't need to take all these pictures. Like, it's okay to take pictures. You gotta have these memories for yourself
Right.
and other people, so they can see you can enjoy life too. You can be young, enjoy life. So.
Hey, you know, I just celebrated a 40th birthday not too long ago.
Yeah. Hey.
Happy birthday, Carrie.
So for my 40th birthday, it caused me to reflect and look back, and I had to remember. It made me think, as a man, an adolescent, 20 years was under the rule or the leadership of somebody else. Everything that I did was based off what I got from my leadership. 20 years later was from what I did, from the fruits of my own hands, from what they gave me. And I look back and seen over 20 years and reflected and seen the lives that were touched and the things that occurred. And you have to give yourself credit. God has been keeping his hands on us. People can see the fruit thereof. And people may never come to say, but those are the things that will be remembered and will be shared. I look at it like Moses on the backside of the mountain. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, he ran away, but I learned that whether you stayed in Egypt or whether you run away to the backside of the mountain, when it's God's timing for you to be called, he's going to call you wherever you are. And the appointment time is coming. He was a leader in Egypt, and he was a leader on the backside of the mountain. He led sheep, and that call and what he did well. And that the things that you did well was what he did 20 years by himself. You know, if I use that analogy, I don't know exactly how long he was on the backside of the mountain, but he did that with his fruit of his own hand. But I feel encouraged because we're in a place that we're growing, that the next level, the things that we did with the fruit of our own hands, God is going to appoint us to what he called us to do from the beginning of time. And the thing about it is, when you God's choice, there is no do-over. You are the set person. You are the set man. You are the set woman to do that task. And I, just like David, when you recall on the things that you went through, when you slayed the lion, when you slayed the bear, those things help you go slay Goliath. You know what I'm saying? So remember. Yeah.
Well, my takeaway, or the paragraph that stood out most to me, is found on page 178, and it reads, "Sometimes We need only for our words to simply show up. Need only for our words to simply say, plain and simply say, that we fiercely saw and deeply loved the soul of another. And in the smallest, slightest ways, you will watch as your words come to be a balm for the ones you love and cherish. Your words will be a balm. Your words will be a balm. Your words will be a balm. Your words can and will be a balm. And that stood out to me because as much as I love to talk, I'm direct and to the point. I simply say. Sometimes I just believe that when we're trying to use all these big words and trying to say so much, you're not saying anything. You're not saying anything. Sometimes little becomes much, you know? And so when you simply say, what you say will pierce the heart. And when it enters in, it's gonna find root, take root and grow. And from there, you get a legacy. And so when what you say, because it wasn't a whole lot, so they can remember it easy, so it's easy for them to retell it and retell it and retell it. And so your legacy keeps going and going and going. So that was one of the things that stood out to me.
Share your example that you shared about Grandma's funeral.
Oh, what did I say here? The connection. Listen, my grandmother was my heart. My grandmother was my heart. And it is true, Pastor says that we have to be careful because every week we're being auditioned. We're being auditioned. Well, back in 2003, I was auditioning Love and Faith. Okay? And so I came in because I was coming to check on my baby. But it was a divine setup. So when I came in, I started just the way he was teaching the word. It was finding that ground in my heart. And so I just was, coming. But during that time, my grandmother passed away. And I was devastated because that was my big girl. But one of the things that actually cinched it for me and put the nail in the coffin, if you will, for me, was I was at my grandmother's funeral, and I was up singing a song dedicated to my grandmother, and I looked up to the back of the church, and Pastor Samuel Lamar Simmons was sitting back there.
Wow.
And it was because now he said God told him that I was his daughter. Wow. And at that time, I was running because I'm like, listen, 23 plus years, But you have to be obedient. But the remembrance of all of that and all of the things that have happened with us over the years, legacy. It's legacy.
Well, we come to that point of time where everybody can be a blessing. Y'all can't see it now, but
Y'all can see
but
what's
Pastor
going
definitely
on.
getting these
It's a whole show going on right now. Whole show.
Our pastor's crying.
Let there be remembrance.
Let there be tissue.
Real tears, too. But that's remembrance. We're remembering.
That's what remembrance does.
Yeah.
Changed my life.
Yes.
Okay, so we come to the portion where we can give, where we can all be a blessing to the house. Hold on, let me pull up my. All right, giving to LFCC helps LFCC to give to others. We have so many charitable efforts that we sow into our community, and what we give on a weekly basis helps us to increase how much we give to those in need. So your giving here, it helps to reach others that are in need, and you help be the arms of the church. Help get Christ to those who don't have. What you see on the side of the altar right now, we have charitable givings, toiletries and things of that nature that will help, go a long way. And people come and take at the end of service. There's 3 ways that you can give. You can give traditionally, or you can go through the LFCC.org. If you're a new member, you can set up your member giving profile there. You can give by text, which is, the number is 850-424-1467, or you can give by Cash App, and the Cash App is $LFC Church, $LFC Church. Now, those are the ways to give. So please give and be generous today. As we move forward, I believe we have a little homework, because this is the lab, okay?
Because this is the last.
So you have some lab work
Yes.
for the week.
Soul work, legacy building work. So this is a time of reflection, and we're going to give you an opportunity to reflect on the legacies that we've inherited from our loved ones. Any values, teachings, examples from those that have gone before us, or you may have someone that's still living that has actually set legacy inside of you. So your homework is to do some reflection and think of some things that you can see that you're living out because of loved ones, okay? Is there anyone on the panel that can reflect on some legacies that they're living through right now?
Yes, and I shared with you all the other day, but my grandmother, she's here, she's there.
Yes.
I just want to bring a lot of pictures of her. But one thing, and it's almost echoing what you said already, but one thing my grandmother, the most beautiful woman, inside and out. It was a way that she loved people. It was a way that she loved, like love in action for me was everything. She never displaced people. Like that was one of the things I would see. She would never make people feel uncomfortable, but just always welcome anyone. And as I shared with you all, my grandfather did have a child outside of him and my grandmother's union. And even with that's my auntie, she's no longer here, but my cousin, she never treated them any kind of way. She took care of her own child, even in the midst of everything that went on. And so it was just all those things, how she loved on others, was just something that I'll always remember. And then also how she told stories. Oh my goodness. Like I try really bad, I try stories. And I shared it with y'all before, and I think I shared it in this platform, but if it was ever lightning and it was raining, everything off, okay? Lights, AC, okay? She's just the one that was a unit. So when it went off, everything, it was hot. Okay. But I remember because, we sitting here in the dark, and she would tell all these great stories, and when she was a little girl, had long pigtails and tried to pull my hair, she would just tell the most amazing stories. And I was saying how much of an impact that she, of course, had on me, but even with the boys, but I mentioned there has not been, they don't mention her name daily or weekly, but there has not been a month that has gone by that they have not mentioned Gigi. It can be, and it's these random moments too. And I'm like, why y'all, what made you think about? But it's like all these random moments, they're always connecting her back to what we're doing in the everyday. And that lets me see how much of an impact she had even on them. They were 4 and 5 when she transitioned, but it was just she just loved everybody. All the way down to the very end, she just loved on everybody, and everybody wanted to always be at her house, But that's one of the things that she left with us, is to love in spite of everything, continue to make people feel important, make people feel like they're not, don't mistreat people, but love on people in spite of everything, make people feel important. But yeah, that's my grandma.
Love is a legacy. Love is culture. Love is a response. Love is presence. Love is covering. Love is care. Love is diligent. It's patient. It's kind. Love is Jesus.
Yes.
love is love and faith. We love how Bishop started. We love AOC. So let us remember the man. Let us remember the music. But let us also remember the moments that he's been present for us and the moments that he's going to continue to create. Let's also remember that we have boot camp this Friday and Saturday. Let us remember.
Let us remember to register.
Let us remember to register. We still have a few spots. Please register $30. But let us.
Tell them what's going on Friday night and what time to be.
And we also have choir rehearsal on Wednesday.
Oh, there we go.
Choir members, be in place. Remember that. We have a lot to do. We're continuing to grow here. We're continuing to plant here. We are not potted. We are planted. So let's continue to grow with each other. Remember, love is what it does.
It's what it does.
See
It's how
y'all
it shows up.
Wednesday.